world has changed. You don't need to sell at events and galleries anymore. You can go to...
As life comes to you, it produces within you desires that are beyond what you currently are experiencing. And so there is always this place that you would call forward or future from your current manifestations. We would call it present because in the moment that you launch the desire, it becomes a reality unto itself that has attraction properties. And your inner being stands in that, what you want to call forward place, where your inner being wants to call present place. And so really, the secret to living happily ever after, or living happily in this moment, the key to having this moment be a happy moment, the key to that is knowing how to manage that gap between what you've just launched and what you still believe. Because your life causes you to desire more than what is. It happens all day, every day. But your now reality, which you mostly examine through your physical senses, causes you to hold tight to what is while you are reaching for more. Now that's uncomfortable. You call that yearning. Sometimes you call it desire. But a desire that is pure doesn't feel uncomfortable. Meaning a desire that you're not resisting. A desire that is not contradicted by habit of thought, which is what a belief is. A purely non-resisted, non-contradicted desire is bliss. And it is powerful. The power of a non-resistant desire. The power of a pure thought. That's what Source offers. That's why Source creates worlds. That's why Earth spins in its orbit in perfect proximity to other planets. Those thoughts, thought by non-physical beings, are non-resistant. They are not doubted. If it were up to humans to keep your Earth spinning in its orbit, you'd have forums on how it's not likely to last. How lucky you've been that it's gone this good this far. And who's responsible for the certain doom. But the non-physical part of you, that non-physical energy that we call non-physical, sometimes you call it God, we call it Source. This non-physical energy is not doubtful. It's not hateful. It's not vulnerable. It just knows. And in that absoluteness of that knowing, which just means in that non-contradictedness of that knowing, there is power that you haven't tasted yet to your full capacity. It's like the difference between non-resistant thought as compared to resisted thought, meaning a pure desire as compared to a desire that you want but you don't believe. Pure thought is equivalent to an atomic bomb, and normal human thought is equivalent to a firecracker. You just can't quite feel the power of the non-resistant thought, and yet every now and again you find a little piece of it, and you feel the energy of it, the euphoria of it, the bliss of it, the power of it. But for most humans, it doesn't last very long because you've trained yourself and been trained by others to be so very objective, so very balanced. Let's weigh the pros and the cons and the pluses and the minuses. Let's think about what we want, but let's look at the downside of it too. And we say, don't do that. Don't contradict your thought for the sake of pleasing others who don't know better. Find something that you want and focus on it unequivocally. And as you look around at others like you who are creating their own reality, and you see someone who is particularly, apparently, masterful at it, in that they've accomplished a lot, they are masters in their art, or masters in their science, or blissful in their world. And as you get up close enough that you get to hear them or know them, you will notice these things about them. They speak of what they want, but they don't talk against it. They don't talk against their own desires. Jerry wrote a paper documentary some years ago entitled Keep Your Ideas to Yourself Until They Are Fully Developed, because he watched so many people who he was counseling in financial matters who would have a desire and they would speak it to those around them who didn't believe in them, who didn't believe in success at all, perhaps. But people are so quick to warn each other about pitfalls, and that's contradicted thought. People are so quick to look for the downside of things. That's contradicted thought. But the difference that we want you to know and feel by the time you walk out of this room today is that the only difference worth really noting between you and your inner being, who is non-physically focused, is that your inner being never speaks against you or against your ideas of desire. And when you do, you cause a kind of separation. There's no possibility of separation. But you pinch yourself off from the fullness of who you are. And that pinched off state of being feels to you like negative emotion. Your emotions are your indicator of how in alignment you are, how fully and wholly you are, or how you are contradicting your own desire. Have you ever had an experience with another human? Usually they're related to you in some way, or married to you, or working with you, or living next door, or complete strangers. And you are having a conversation with them about something that you believe deeply in. And they believe deeply in it too, they just don't agree with you. And so you explain your perspective, which just makes them come on stronger with theirs. And then they explain their perspective, which just makes you come on stronger with yours. And so you've got this sort of tug of war going, and rarely is there any consensus that is formed under those conditions, because you just dig in a protective state to defend your position. Have you ever had that experience? Children? What we want you to realize is that those two perspectives are present within you, singularly, individually, you, every day, when you have a desire that you don't believe. I want more money, but. I want more money, but I've never had enough money. I don't know anybody that really has enough money. My parents didn't have enough money. And while that is factually accurate, it doesn't need to remain that way, but the reason it does remain that way is because when you keep that vibration active as a belief, then your desire can't get far out ahead of it. And this is the thing, this is the premise that we want you to begin with today. We want you to listen to what we say next and try to get your thoughts around this, because as you accept this progression of your evolution, as you hear this simple premise that we're going to put forward right here, everything else will be easy for you from now on as you are creating your own reality. So here's the premise. You came from non-physical, but not all of you came. And in this physical body, you have a role to play in the co-creation between you and your non-physical counterpart. You said, I'll be on the leading, not bleeding, leading edge. I'll explore contrast, and I will come to my own personal conclusions of what I would prefer beyond what is. And your inner being said, and when you do that, we will accept from you the essence of what you are asking for, and we will hold it in a non-resistant state while you find a way of bringing your beliefs to match it. In other words, if you lived in a time and a space where there was not enough food, and starvation is what was happening all around you, and your desire for abundance of food, not just for your belly, but for the bellies of those you love, for the bellies of those that you don't even know, you and however many of you that are having the experience, usually millions, are launching rockets of desires, and all of your inner beings are receiving those requests and holding purely that thought of abundance of food. But the reality of your starvation in your human form keeps you from believing that, keeps you from accepting that, because what is so powerfully witnessed by you. And you would feel like a fool to pretend starvation of relationships or starvation of clarity, starvation of abundance of all manner, because what is, in terms of what you're seeing and hearing and smelling and tasting and touching, feels so real to you. And we want you to accept that while that is a reality, there is a vibrational reality that is the beginning of all things that are coming. And so these are the words that we want you to capture here, that we want you to focus with us upon. Get out ahead of it. Get out ahead of it. Now, what do we mean by that? So, you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. Your desire got out ahead of your belief. It got out ahead of it. In fact, it got so out ahead of it, atomic bomb compared to firecracker kind of ratio. It got so far out ahead of it that source and that which you call God and all manner of that which is goodness, all non-physical, is focused with you on your new, out ahead of it desire. Out ahead of it. Now, you could translate that literally, out ahead of it meaning it hasn't manifested yet. Like the seed in the ground is out ahead of the corn stalk that will grow and the ear of corn that will grow. In other words, the potential is out ahead of the reality. You get what we're talking about? But if the farmer didn't believe in the process of the seed becoming the ear of corn, then he would never plant the seed. And so often, humans don't plant the seed because they want the corn to show up right now. Now, we know you get that in terms of corn. But we want you to get that in terms of everything. We want you to realize that when you launch a rocket of desire, that's a seed that is germinating in this vibrational reality and being tended by the gardener of all gardeners, that which is source energy in your inner being, and it will become that which you want it to be, but you will not witness it if you are contrary to your own desire. You see what we are getting at? You've got to find a way to believe in your own desire. You've got to believe in your own desire, which means you've got to understand the process. You've got to understand that there is a vibration that is becoming a thought, and a thought that is becoming an impulse, and an impulse that is becoming a manifestation. In fact, let's call the thought a manifestation too, and let's call the impulse a manifestation too. In other words, let's start watching for the evidence of your desires turning to things that you can witness, rather than needing the thing to be there first so that you can then believe in it. Humans say, well, I'll believe it when I see it. And we say, you got to believe it before you see it, or you can't see it. But what trips you up is that there are other things that you can see that have been created by others, or that were here when you got here, or that are easier for you to believe, so you don't quite make the equation that you as a creator, as a master of creation, have some mastery to accomplish, and you can't be lazy about it. You got to pay attention to what you're doing vibrationally. You can't just complacently move along through life. Observing what you want, that's a good thing because you create more of that, but when you observe what you don't want, not so good because you create more of that. Because this is a universe based upon attraction. There's no exclusion in this universe. So when you see something that you want and you say yes to it, you're saying yes to something that you want, and there's a very good chance that you are non-resistant to that, and so it will flow easily, usually quickly into your experience. But when you see what you don't want and you shout no at it, you're really saying yes to the thing that you do not want. So you're saying yes to not enough money at the same time you're saying I want more money. I want more money, and yes, I want not enough money. And you want to say, no, I'm not. I'm saying yes to money and no to not enough. And we say, no, you're not. You're saying yes to money and yes to not enough money. You've got a tug of war going on inside of you. Because in this universe that is vibrational, it's not verbal. Strange we verbal so much. This is not a verbal universe. This is a vibrational universe. And so you are speaking a vibrational language, and in many cases you are misusing it because you don't realize that you're speaking a vibrational language.
Hi, Ron. I was practicing feeling what it feels like to have another helper, and I know exactly what it feels like. I already have one of those, and then I'll get so tired by the end of the day. It's gone on several weeks that I haven't found anybody that I have a hard time hanging on
so what's happening is, in your tiredness and in your not finding one, you're noticing that a great deal because that's what is. And so that's getting more of your vibrational airtime, so to speak. So that's that thing you're doing that we're talking about that doesn't let the universe yield to you what you've been asking for. In other words, the helpers that you're asking for are already lined up, but you're not letting them come because you're so busy noticing that they're not there yet. And there's another thing that we want to give you. We can feel this in your vibration. It's rampant all over the room. Esther's got some of it too, in fact. And that is, almost everyone does, it's that paddling upstream thing. It's that belief that if it is worthwhile, then it's going to require some effort. It's that trying to justify my existence. It's the measuring myself and my hard work against the others who are working hard. And it's the unwillingness to accept that you're good even when you're not beating your brains out. That you deserve things to come even when you're not staying up all night or even when you're not applying yourself.
It's amazingly difficult allowing things that you really want are really nice to come so easily.
Well, we would suggest that you start taking a poll of your planet. You'll begin to notice that those who are thriving in the strongest way are those who have given up the battle and who expect well-being to flow to them. In other words, they're no longer justifying their well-being. And if you're not there yet and you talk to them, they'll seem arrogant to you. They will really annoy you because they expect things to go well for them, and so they do. And for someone who hasn't learned the art of that expectation, it will seem like injustice, but it isn't. There is no injustice. You always get whatever is flowing. Jerry and Esther have a monster bus, and it's a very big machine. It's like a big automobile in that it needs to be washed regularly because it's out in the weather and going down the highways, and yet it's like washing your house. And so in many of the parks that they stay in, there are people who will come to wash them, and in fact the bus is still there in a park in Portland. And when they got there, the cards that Esther had seen from the years gone by of people who will come and wash the coach were not there, and so Esther asked the woman if she had someone that she could recommend. She said, we had a really good man who came last year. And she said, well, he won't buy an ad in our newspaper anymore, and so we don't recommend him. And Esther said, well, I don't want you to recommend him, I just want you to give me his phone number. He was really, really good. And she said, well, the management has told me that I should not recommend him. And Esther said, well, I've got it somewhere. Never mind, I can go dig through my records and I can eventually find it because I really, really liked this man. And so she quietly wrote his number down and slipped it to Esther and sort of like, please don't ever tell anybody that I gave you this number because I'm not supposed to give you this number. And so Jerry and Esther called this man, and he began describing how hard life has been lately. I had to sell my home, he said. The economy is down. People aren't traveling as much. He said, this is only the second time this year that I've even been to this park. He said, things have been really hard for me. And Esther said, well, you know, if you would buy an ad in that newspaper, they would start recommending you again. And he went on to explain how that was unfair, that he shouldn't have to do that, and that he didn't want to do that. And then he did a magnificent job of washing and polishing Jerry and Esther's bus. And Jerry and Esther were busy doing their things as this man and his wife were diligently working on their bus and their car and their tires. They spent almost the whole day there. And so Jerry asked how much it was, and he told him the price, which was half what they are accustomed to paying in other places. And then Jerry and Esther got to talking, and Esther said, why don't we give him the $300 so that he can buy the ad? And Jerry said, that's a really good idea. And so Jerry made a list of all of the reasons why he is a spectacular service and why they wanted him back. They wanted to help him to understand all of this. And so he came back, and Jerry offered him the money, and he did not want to take it. Oh, no, I cannot do that. And Jerry said, well, I'm not giving the money to you. I am applying the money to an experiment. Let's just see how it works. And when we come back next year, you can let us know whether the $300 paid off or not. And so the man reluctantly took it, and did take the money to the office and placed the ad. And Jerry and Esther have been in the park now for about 8 days. And that man has washed many, many coaches. In other words, every time they look out their window, he's over there, 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 he's over there. He has a spring in his in other words, now, what we're getting at here is that in his determination to acknowledge what was not working, he had a vibration so activated within him, but not so much that someone could not reach out to him. In other words, Esther had to find him, and it wasn't really easy for her to find him, but he had been good enough, and his vibration was enough still in harmony with that, that with some effort, even with all of his resistance, Esther was still able to find him. And Jerry and Esther, in finding him, were able to focus upon his desire enough that they reactivated within him. In other words, it wasn't only the money that bought the ad, which caused the woman to then begin referring him again. It was that Jerry and Esther had, in their attention to his value, had restored his own expectation within him. And so these referrals were not coming from the office. These referrals were coming because he broke loose. In other words, the other people that were there in the park, now they're noticing him. Now they're lining up with him. Now they're seeing him as his car goes by. Now he is a vibrational match to his own desire, where for months he has not been a vibrational match to his desire. And so, in the same way that with a little bit of effort and caring, Jerry and Esther were able to focus strongly. Jerry spent a couple of hours on the process. The two of them talked about it. They began envisioning, and then Jerry had a very nice conversation with the man. In other words, they helped him to activate his vibration. We're just encouraging you to be self-sufficient in the activating of your vibration. In other words, most of you are like a two-headed monster. And one head's saying, I can't, and the other one's saying, I want to, and the other one's saying, no, I can't, and the other one's saying, I want to, and one's saying, but it's hard, and the other one's saying, no, it isn't, it's easy, and the other one's saying, but I need to justify my existence to my hard work and effort, and the other one's saying, there is no hard work and effort that's required, it's just point both heads in this direction. And you do it from where you are. Now, here's the thing that we really want you to hear. We've already said this, but we so want to emphasize this. So, let's say you want to be over here in joy, and right now you're over here in overwhelmment and struggle and hardship just a little bit. And we're exaggerating that, but based upon the words and vibration that you're offering, it's not far from accurate. And you want to be over there, but here you are over here. And what we want you to feel viscerally is the difference between being over here pointed that way and being over here pointed that way. Because in the moment that you stop pointing that way, which is the beating of the drum of what's not working, or how hard it is, or how tired you are, and you just say, I am where I am, and look where I am, and it's getting better, and I'm doing fine. And as you release that resistance, the stream turns you. And in the moment that you get turned with the flow, you feel palpable relief. So our point is, friends, we want you to get over here where you want to be. Although we have to say, get over here and move, get over here and move, get over here and move, get over here. You get a picture of this? It's going to keep moving. So we want you to get within the vicinity of what you're wanting. You want that. But what we really want is where you get turned in the direction of this. Because once you get in the direction of it, then it doesn't matter so much. Your proximity to where you want to be becomes less important because now you're flowing. And the more you flow, the faster you flow, and the faster you flow, the more fun you have, and the more fun you have, the more ideas you have. The more ideas you have, the more you ask for, the more you ask for, the more the energy flows, the more the energy flows, the more you have to tend to your vibration. In other words, you've got a wallop and stream going. You better get pointed in the right direction or it will make you tired. What makes you tired is not flowing with the flow. What makes you tired is resistance. But haven't you felt the difference between getting up and doing something you really wanted to do all day? You expended far more energy, far more attention, and you weren't tired because there was no resistance within you. And have you felt how when you have to do something that you don't really want to do, you can hardly drag your body out of bed? It's not about physical energy, it's about vibrational energy. It's about resistance. It's about flowing or resisting. That's what it is all about, you see. So words like it's getting better, words like I'm figuring it out, far I've come. Look how well I'm doing. Look how much I know. So we watch you. You're bored, you ask for more. You get things moving too fast, you ask for it too slow a little bit. Or you ask for more help, or you ask for a better idea. You just never stop asking for the improvement from wherever you are. And the universe never stops yielding the answer. The first thing we would do if we were standing in your physical shoes is we would write on our things to do today list, I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to do nothing other than revive and refresh. Now, what does that mean? Find a good place to eat, find a good place to sleep, find fun people to visit with. Oh, here you are. I'm going to refresh myself. In other words, the first order of business would be, I'm going to do my best to get myself tuned in, tapped in, turned on to who I really am. And then from that aligned position, I'll do But do you hear what you're focused on? What you're focused on is I'm not hearing as clearly as I would like to. And so, what's the stance of your vibration? And so, even when you say it or notice it, there's this feeling that I'm blocking something. And you've learned enough from us and others and from life to know that a desire is one frequency and a belief is another. And if the belief about the desire isn't the same as the desire, then there's a sort of blocking going on. And so you set yourself up pretty good for this blockage. You said, through life, I could hear, and for a while I could hear clearly, and now I'm not hearing as clearly. And we want to say, that's why.
I didn't know how else to ask the questions.
It's the perfect way to ask the question. It's the way life causes you to ask the question. There's not anything inappropriate about your question. Your perfect question lets us offer you this perfect answer. And it ties into what we were talking about earlier. Observation is what sets the vibrational tone foremost. And so when you decide, I must not be hearing as clearly, first of all, rather than using the word hearing, let's use the word focusing on the energy stream. Because we're not yelling in Esther's ear and then she's yelling it out to you. We're not whispering in her ear and she's yelling it out to you. We are offering our knowledge in the form of vibration that she has interpreted. So when you say hear, what you really mean is receive. And to receive, from your electronics, your tuner has to be set to what you're reaching for. But the thing about this hearing from non-physical is that step one is, that's the question. Step two is, source offers the answer. Step three is, you got to receive the answer. And so, as you're standing there with the asking and with trying to hear the answer, sometimes your asking gets in the way of hearing the answer. Does that make sense? It's like you're so aware of what is, which just makes you ask so hard for what you really want, which causes source energy to answer with great clarity and depth and breadth. But if you're all balled up in the question, you can't hear the answer. So you want to put some conscious separation between the asking and the receiving of the answer.
When you see the cooperative components start to unfold in front of you, and you get excited about it, that little voice in my head starts to go, what's next? And how do you control that so you don't put the brakes on the process?
Well, just pay attention to the way you're feeling. We're going to give you an example of this. You're really going to like this. It speaks exactly to where you are and what you're asking for, and so many others too. We're going to throw out some statements that we just want to settle in with you, sort of starting in a building process, so as you receive one, the next will be easier to hear, and the next, and so on. So, you create your own reality, and you offer a vibration that law of attraction responds to, and that's how you do it. And you've been doing it, and you've got a reality around you that you've already created. These are big words. You've got a reality around you that you've already created that's in the way of the one you're trying to create now. Because it's full of things that you are observing, and it's full of things that you believe that are in the way of what you're now asking for. You kind of get that, don't you? I want it, but. Think about anyone that you've been trying to encourage in something, and as soon as you start being optimistic about their situation, they get really logical and argue for their limitations. And after a little while, you sort of want to give it up with them, because it's like, you've talked me into it, you can't do this. Well, you have this same sort of struggle going on within yourself. Your desires are being challenged by your beliefs, but your beliefs will morph and modify to satisfy the expansion of that which you are about. It is the eternal nature of all that we all are. So, there is this now reality that as you're involved in it, and how can you not be? And you're seeing it and hearing it and smelling it and tasting it and touching it, and how can you not be? And that observation is in the way. So, over time, we've written a whole lot of books with a whole lot of processes to help you to bridge those beliefs, to help you lighten the tension on those beliefs that are preventing you sometimes from going other end of it, no matter what the subject is. So imagine that you have a pile of sticks, and one of them is about money, and one of them is about sexuality, and one of them is about lovers, one of them is about religion, every subject in the world. One of them is about how you want your house to look and what color of paint you even like. In other words, it's a big old pile of sticks. And there's the what I want end of the stick and the what I don't want end of the stick. And those ends of the stick are vibrational in nature. And the wanted end of the stick is a very different frequency than the what I don't want. So you could, if you could catch it early before you're already on this end of the stick, you could take a subject that you feel mostly really good about, and you could focus on it, even daydream around it a little bit. And you could accomplish an activation of a vibration that puts you solidly on this end of the stick, which means, and this is what we want you to hear, now you have access to every stick in the pile from that end. It's so much easier to find any stick in the pile that feels good to you, path of least resistance good, and then to get to the solution of every problem in the world, or to the answer to every question in the world. So much easier to do it that way than to be on the other end of the stick and try to convince yourself that what you really want is the other end of that stick. Are you following? We want you to approach your stick pile. There's a contradiction in the words that we're going to offer to you here. Vibrationally rather than physically. And the stick pile itself is what we meant by the contradiction in that. We want you to be a vibrational seeker rather than a subject by subject seeker. In other words, we want you to care about your vibration. You see, if we can convince you that you care about your vibration, and we can get you to do some things that allow you to allow your vibration to rise, now you have access to everything that's in the vortex, and now the magical seeming unfolding of this phase of your life, meaning this minute, and the next minute, and the next minute, maybe a few hours of it, are going to unfold in a way that they often don't unfold. Haven't you noticed the better it gets, and the worse it gets, the worse it gets? Haven't you ever gotten off on a negative run where everything that happens goes wrong? You forget this, and you forget this, and you forget this, and then you stub your toe, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then you slam your hand in the door, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then you go to the doctor, he cuts the wrong finger off.
It's time for a nap to stop the
In other words, the better it gets, 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 but the worse it gets, the worse it gets, the worse it gets, the worse it gets, because law of attraction is always in action. Law of attraction is always responding to you. Now we're going to make some of those basic statements that we said we would make. One who's connected to the stream or to the source energy, or who is under the influence of source, is more powerful than millions who aren't. So there's so much power in the accomplishment of this. We're just wanting you to care about reaching for it. And the next thing that we want to say is that when you are creating your own reality, let's say it's a business enterprise that you're in the process of creating, or a relationship, in that direction will become greater and greater and greater until you will feel the power, the rhythm of it, and you will be in that place of receptive mode, that place of reception where you will understand that, where you will understand it because words don't teach, it's life experience that teaches. So as we speak to you, these laws of the universe, and you feel the resonance of them, if you can accept that you are vibrational and that you have a vibrational reality and that it is calling you, and the better you feel, the more you are tuned and turned that way. And the worse you feel, the more you've got some belief that is still stuck in your vibrational craw, that you've got activated, that is preventing you from allowing yourself to be called in the direction of what you really want. Once you consciously acknowledge this, and then you start living life and watching, what you begin to notice is there's an absolute, every single time, correlation between your mood and attitude and what is unfolding. It's either magical or not magical. And there's some stuff in between, but not really very much. You have strong emotions these days. You've tuned enough to who you are that when you're out of tune with who you are, you really feel it. People say to us, is it normal for all hell to break loose in my life once I begin playing with you? And we say, sort of, kind of. Because you activate the wholeness of who you are, which makes it less tolerable to be in a vibrational frequency that is not who you really are. You think it's, oh no, this negative emotion is because my lover left me. Oh no, this negative emotion is because I don't have enough money or because I'm afraid of what's happening globally in the world. And we say, every single time you feel negative emotion, it's because you're not keeping up with you. Meaning, you're not looking at this situation through the eyes of source, through the eyes of knowing, through the eyes of expansion, through the eyes of power. You're looking at this situation through the eyes of bondage, through the eyes of powerlessness, through the eyes of disempowerment to some degree. When you feel joy or love or appreciation, all of those emotions are about your perception of utter empowerment. And when you feel depression or fear, those feelings are your indication of your perception of powerlessness. Do you know that? Have you ever felt depressed, you know, that empty feeling, and then got really, really mad about it? And didn't you notice that when you got mad, you felt less powerless? And wouldn't you say, well, would you say, we shouldn't put words in your mouth, but we can hardly help it. Wouldn't you say that you would every time rather be angry or enraged than afraid? Every time. We know you would, and the reason we know you would is because we see you. Every time you feel powerless, you get mad at first, till someone bigger than you convinces you that your anger is not a good thing. And so, what we want you to realize is that you have this natural inclination to begin moving in the direction of who you really are and where everything is. If you are made to feel as if you do not have power, the first thing you do, and you may remember it if you think back, and you may recognize it as you look at the little ones, you throw a fit. Because you know at every level of your being that you are free, and that you are supposed to be able to get what you want. It is an innate tenet of who you are. So when someone tries to convince you that you are not, it's like a pillow pressed to your face. You flail about. But in time, just like you break your horses, we see you break your children, in the sense that finally, most of them will give up if the bigger one insists that the direction of anger from the feeling of powerlessness is the wrong direction. But we're here to tell you that every time it's the right direction. Oh, if you were frustrated or overwhelmed, we would never coach you to anger. That's going upstream. We would only coach you to anger if you're feeling powerless, if you're feeling depression. We would coach you into revenge. We wouldn't ask you to hang around there until you've done something terrible. We'd keep coaching you. We'd keep calling you from your revenge into your rage, into your anger, into your less anger, into your less anger, into your frustration and overwhelmment, into your hopefulness, into your believing, into your knowingness, into your joy. In other words, who you are at the source energy level will call you never-endingly toward who you really are. But the call of source is a relevant term, isn't it? The call of source sounds like it sounds depending upon where you are in relationship to it. attraction that you feel. And so, as we're moving forward here today, we want to help you to really feel that. We want to help you to quantify your journeys. We've noticed as we've been watching you that when you travel from place to place, you know how to do it. As you go from Phoenix to San Diego, it's easy to figure that out. You know you're going to go west. You know that the signposts are going to guide you along the way. And so you don't get out in the desert part way and then feel so discouraged that you're not all the way there that you get disoriented and lose your way and turn around and go back to Phoenix in the wrong direction. Phoenix, Yuma, Phoenix, Yuma, Phoenix, Yuma, Phoenix, Yuma. And then you announce to your friends, San Diego is an impossible dream. San Diego is incurable. And we say, you don't do that about those kinds of journeys because you understand them. But you, for the most part, in your human form, have not been understanding your vibrational journeys. You have not been understanding that if you're sick and you want to be well, that you can't keep feeling the fear of the sickness. You can't keep poking at the symptoms of the sickness. You can't keep worrying about the sickness and move toward the wellness. That is an impossible dream. That is an incurable illness. Not because it is incurable, but because you keep going in opposition to what life has caused you to ask for. Do you know that when the contrast of life, you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. When you're sick, you want to be well. Do you know that if you're really sick, you launch more powerful rockets of desire into your vibrational escrow, and as a vibrational being, you are weller than you were before you got sick? Just like this leading edge expanded time-space reality where you stand is weller, more advanced, stronger, and further in development than anything that came before it. Do you know that that's what creation is about? That's why you said you would come forth? You said, I will go forth a part of me from my non-physical vantage point of well-being into an environment of variety and contrast. And from that variety and contrast, I will come, genius creator that I am, to my own personal conclusions about what would be better. And when that happens, I know that a rocket will radiate from me and the larger part of me will embrace that rocket. And when that happens, there will be, by the power of law of attraction, a calling of me to it. And if I hear the call and move in the direction of it, I will achieve the full-fledged manifestational results or indications of that vibrational alignment. That's what you said. And so, it's an odd thing, and you know it is, when you reside in negative emotion for long periods of time. Because as you allow yourself to be unhappy about something, as you allow things to bother you, as you find things to fuss and worry about, as you allow yourself to feel inadequate or unworthy, as you allow yourself to feel disenfranchised or victimized or taken advantage of, as you allow yourself to feel those things, as you practice those thoughts until they are chronic, what happens is you establish a vibrational habit, which is nothing more than what you call a belief. You establish a vibrational habit that disallows all that's waiting for you in vibrational escrow. But now, you've got a full picture of this, you will never again feel negative emotion and not know what it means. Negative emotion means every time the thought I'm thinking, the drum I'm beating, has me activating a thought vibration that's different from the eyes of source. And as I hold myself in this vibrational pattern, I disallow my movement into alignment with who I am, and I disallow my movement towards the very thing I said I want. So it plays out like this. Your life experience shows you that you don't have enough money, so you want more money. And this has been happening for a while. So, I don't have enough money, I want more money, until you have put a veritable fortune, we're not kidding you, in your vibrational escrow. We've seen it. But then, you beat the drum of not enough money. I don't have enough money. I'm worried about money. I've never really had enough money. I can't remember ever having enough money. It seems like I've always been short of money. In fact, I hardly know anybody who has enough money. Hardly anybody has enough money. Oh, that rich bugger over there has got plenty of money, but it's not right. It isn't fair. deals drugs. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough money. They won't pay me enough money. I deserve much more money. I've been here a long time. I do a good job. They should recognize the good job I'm doing. They should be paying me more money. Did you see how much that cost? Can you believe that they would ask that much for that? So without even meaning to, you observe what's going on and you talk about it to yourself and others until you develop this chronic attitude, mood, proclivity, vibration about money. And all along, unbeknownst to you, in your vibrational escrow, tended to for you by your source energy, is a veritable fortune. And not only is it being tended, you're being called toward it. And do you know that negative emotion you feel when you think about money? Do you know what it means? It means that you're being called, but you're not going. It means that the stream is beating up on you because you've got your feet nailed to the bed of the floor of the river and you're not going. Jerry and Esther went whitewater rafting last summer, and it was such a fun day. And as they put their boat in the water, there were a lot of them that went. 6 of them went together, and several other rafts full of high school wrestlers. And as they put their boat in the water, not one of them even thought about turning the raft upstream. They knew that fast-moving river, it was class 4 rapids in much of the stream, was going to have its way with them. Nobody even thought about paddling upstream. And the river guide said to them, first thing, friends, this is not Disneyland. We cannot turn this river off. And this is the thing that we most want to say to you. We cannot turn this river off. Further, you're the one who made the river go so fast. You hit the ground running when you were born. You had so much intention. And all day, every day, you're sifting through that data of life and asking. You're the reason the river's moving fast, and you're the reason that you're going with it or not. You have total control in all of this. And nothing that you're doing has anything to do with anybody else or anybody else's river. In other words, stay out of their boat. And don't invite them in your boat. In other words, the only thing that matters to you, the only awareness that you need to have, if you want to utilize the guidance system that you were born with, you want to know one thing and one thing only, moment by moment, thought by thought. Is this upstream or downstream? And then the next statement is, how can I make it more downstream? How can I turn this thought and this feeling more downstream? What could I do to soften the resistance? What could I do to release the resistance a little more? And trying harder is the wrong answer. Trying harder makes the resistance more. It's letting go of the oars that makes it less. It's trusting the process. It's trusting the stream. It's trusting that you have an inner being that is calling you toward it. This is such an important message that a while back we wrote a book and we gave it the best title of any book that's ever been written. Ask and it is given. And we just explained to you how that is so. Life causes you to ask, and Source not only gives it to you, Source literally becomes the vibrational essence of that which you are asking for, and stands in such complete alignment with the ever-expanding version of you, and offers a signal unto the universe that law of attraction is responding to, which creates the sensation within you of a current that is indescribable. And when you allow yourself to move in the direction of that current, you feel wonderful, and when you don't, you don't. Jerry and Esther's granddaughter, Kate, 5 years old. You're going to see her soon. Will bring, as she always does, a little toy car, small enough to keep in her hand or pocket. And then she wants to play the game. Let's hide the car. I'll hide it, she says, and you find it. So Kate hides it in the garden, or in the bus, or in the living room, wherever they are. She hides it, and then she gives them clues. You're getting warmer. You're getting warmer. Oh, now you're colder. You're getting, oh, now you're colder. You're getting warmer. You're getting warmer. Oh, you're getting really warm. You're getting hot, 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 hot. And they find it every time. Because Kate knows where it is. kind of things. If you're feeling satisfied, then you're not in the way. You're not introducing any resistance. But if you are standing in an attitude of dissatisfaction, in other words, if you're complaining about what is, I wish it were different, I wish it wasn't like this, I wish it was like that, then you're in the not satisfied mode. You're in the dissatisfied mode. And in the dissatisfied mode, you're not closing that gap at all. Now, as humans, you want to explain to yourself and to others and to us why it's justified that you're dissatisfied. And we'll give you that. We know sometimes you're standing with not enough money or with too much of something you don't want. We get that. In other words, we know that sometimes your current bouncing off place isn't all that pleasant. But it is a bouncing off place, and that's the thing that we want you to realize. When you're standing where you don't want to be, you're bouncing off into something better. But most of you don't bounce so well. Your inner being takes the bounce. Your inner being says, all right, here we go. But if you're dissatisfied, then you don't go. And then your dissatisfaction is amplified because, now these are new words, hear them. Your dissatisfaction is amplified because your inner being took off where you pointed and you didn't go to. We have enjoyed this interaction immensely. We've enjoyed it so much. There just isn't anything else that you need to know, and that guy leaving the room knows it. Came, got it, got everything I came for. We're not making fun of him. You may all leave. We've got nothing beyond that. Don't go. We're going to have fun. So, creation is so delicious. It's what you have come for. You're creative geniuses, and you've come into this physical environment to create. But this is worth really understanding. This one very brief basis, and then we're going to throw it open to you. All of you isn't in this body. A part of your consciousness is, but a large part of you remains as non-physical consciousness. It's what you call soul or source. We call it your inner being. It goes like this. You were non-physically focused. A part of your consciousness came into this body, a magnificent part. You donned this personality. Now you're exploring this environment. You out here on the leading edge, just like you knew you would be. Life is causing you to identify through your perspective things that you want. You're launching these rockets of desire. When these rockets of desires emanate from you, that's leading edge thought, that's expansion of the universe. It's not just expansion of your bank account, or expansion of your life experience, or expansion of your satisfaction, or expansion of your eagerness. It's expansion of the universe. So you launch these rockets of desire, and as we said before, maybe you keep up and maybe you don't, and sometimes you do better on some subjects than others, but your inner being always receives the new idea from you, focuses completely upon the new becoming that you just accomplished because you just asked for something beyond what you are currently living. And your inner being becomes the vibrational, therefore, point of attraction, because law of attraction is responding to your inner being. You hear that? Point of attraction, new point of attraction. Your inner being is now attracting differently than it was before because you lived contrast and asked for more. That's pretty easy to understand, isn't it? So your inner being is now attracting differently because law of attraction is responding to all of you, the non-physical you, who is in this vortex, in this vibrational reality, and the physical you. So as your inner being is now attracting, 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 you're going to feel the pull of that. And if you're inclined in this moment to feel sort of satisfied, then as your inner being attracts, you are comprehending it, which means you get to witness the unfolding of your creation. The ideas are flowing through you, you can feel it. Your timing is good, your rendezvousing is good. Everything feels so good to you. But if you're in the dissatisfied mode, then while this new attraction is going on with your inner being, you're feeling more miserable as you notice that, as you emotionally notice, as you feel sort of in your solar plexus, as you vibrationally interpret, you can sometimes two aspects of you, and they both matter. And that there are two aspects of you, non-physical and physical, and that we're all in this together. And that there are 2 points of attraction, and the better job you do through your satisfying thoughts, merging with your inner being so that you are one point of attraction, the less pulled apart you feel. And negative emotion is the sensation of you pulling yourself apart a little bit. I've asked for this, but in my dissatisfaction, I'm not allowing it. But my inner being isn't waiting for me. My inner being is off there attracting it. And if I don't go along, if I don't become a cooperative component to my own creation, I'm going to feel the tug of war going on inside of me. You got that, didn't you? We've enjoyed this interaction immensely. So what do you want to talk about? We're eager to talk with you about anything that matters right here. Yep, come on up.
Hello, thank you. I have 2 questions, both of them about closing the gap. So,
We want to hear you, but we want to play just a minute. Closing that gap is good. But a gap that isn't widening is good too. So, kind of getting up to speed and then moving in the direction, that's not a bad way to live. See what we're getting at? Moving in opposition, not so good. Standing still while life causes your inner resources to move on, not so good. But just moving in the direction, that's good life.
so how do you move towards satisfaction with your health and well-being while the time of your life, but it leads you towards death? And kind of opening the gap while you're trying to close it.
It requires a broader look. It requires a realization that there is no death, that it's open-ended, and that you will continue to be. And one of the great benefits of meditation and getting in sync with your inner being is that you come to realize the eternal nature of your being, which takes the sting out of the flawed premise that any part of you is coming to an end.
But you come to enjoy less and less what's happening to your body.
First of all, that's not necessary. It's not necessary to decline as you move through time. That's a byproduct of resistance.
So I guess that's my question. How?
How?
How do you not decline? How?
By finding more satisfaction in every moment. And by being willing to accept the decline as a flawed premise, even though there's so much circumstantial evidence of it all around you. To accept it as a flawed premise, and then just find satisfaction more moment by more moment by more moment. Wouldn't you say, or would you say, we don't want to put words into your head. Yes, we do. Wouldn't you say that clarity is something that people commonly expect to lose as they move through time? There's a television commercial that comes on that shows your brain and says that your brain stops losing its
Okay, you ready?
activity as you move through time. We all lose
Okay, you ready?
I can become more. It doesn't matter.
Okay, you ready?
And so, in that way, she's defying the common logic that your brain functions are supposed to diminish. No, you can come to accept that relative to anything. Satisfaction is a state of mind, not a state of condition. And once you discover that, there was a man in the hot seat a few weeks ago who had invented a barbecue contraption. And he explained it and he was very excited about it, but he was also worried about it. And we'd just begun really talking about satisfaction and not satisfaction. We've been talking about it forever, but in those specific terms. And so he was having a hard time following us because he was really worried about this thing taking off. And it invested quite a bit of time and money in it, and he wanted us to give him the magic formula. And we were talking to him, much as you've heard here today already, and he still couldn't quite hear it, and so we asked the audience, would being satisfied serve this person? And the entire audience said yes. And then we said, being to see you moving in the same way that you don't feel good when your inner being sort of keeps moving at your bequest without you. Your friends don't like it when you keep moving without them being able to keep up with you either. What everyone wants, whether it's a material object or a pile of money, what's behind all desire is a desire to feel better. So, the better you feel, two things are accomplished. You help others realize that you can feel good, and maybe they might believe that they can too. But they might have a lot of flawed premises, like Esther thinking she cut the trees down, that keep them from accepting that they too can feel better.
So if everything else fails, you just end up sitting in a small room enjoying yourself.
At first, or a big room. But then what happens is, if that accomplishes what we know it will, and you get into the receiving mode, then you'll get an impulse. And if you follow the impulse, it'll be out there where others are, and it'll be such good timing that then you'll